Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs, the podcast for burned out, career-minded moms who are ready to stop pretending everything's fine and feel like themselves again. I'm your host, Christy Amir, burnout coach for moms, licensed therapist, and mom of two. And I'm here to help you reclaim your energy, your identity, and your peace of mind. Whether you're lying awake thinking about the 87 things you didn't get done, or silently resenting the people you love most, this is your space to feel seen, supported, and not so alone. So grab your coffee, hot, cold, or day old, and let's get into it. Hey everybody, it's Christy. Welcome to Overcaffeinated and Out of Effs. Today, I would like to welcome our guest, Khiara Cureton, an executive career and wealth coach and founder of AncHER Co, where she helps ambitious mothers break through the middle management ceiling, secure their first executive role, build wealth and financial freedom while still being present in motherhood, all without burnout or guilt. So I've invited her today to talk about career, money, motherhood, ambition, why they have to coexist, and how to build around them. So, Khiara, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited about this conversation.
Yes, I am too. So, why don't you, if you don't mind, why don't you just start off by telling us a little bit about, your story and how you got into this work?
Absolutely. So, first of all, I love the title of this podcast.
Thank you.
It is so relatable. But yes, my name's Khiara Cureton, and I have always been ambitious. And I think ambitious means different things for different people. I know, previously, ambition has kind of been a dirty word, but then it was praise. Like it's been through a lot, right? The word ambition has been through a lot, especially as it relates to women and even more particularly mothers. And so I was a traveling Monday through Thursday consultant on the road all the time. And we found out that we were expecting right before 2020. And I was also going up for promotion. And so I felt like I was at a crossroads because I knew the kind of mother I wanted to be. And I wanted to be present, not at everything, but at some things. And that would be very hard to do with my current, setup. And so I had career mentors and I had a financial advisor, but I feel like they weren't singing the same tune. It was like, oh, more about retirement, and then the career advisors go ahead and after the career. So I felt like there was a resource missing that was truly looking at your career, your ambition, and then your overall, money, personal finance goals, all cohesively. And so I started AncHER because I wanted to be a resource for those other mothers who also were ambitious and still wanted to continue to grow in their careers financially as well. But then also, this new chapter of motherhood and supporting them through that.
Okay, great. Well, and I do think that, as I'm listening to you talk, I do think that motherhood and career, that's something that we talk about a lot. That's something that a lot of people are, doing. They're doing
Right.
both of the things.
Right.
But one of the things that I feel like is often left out of the conversation is this piece specifically about money, right? And so I'm really excited to talk more about this today, but I'm wondering if you can just maybe start off with the big question. So when you talk about how career, money, motherhood, ambition, they all must coexist. Can you just talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So how I kind of tell it to my clients is that these things aren't four separate buckets. They're completely intertwined. So if you think about it, your career fuels your income, your money choices create that stability for your overall family, and then motherhood is huge and it impacts and it shapes how you lead and what you overall value. And then that ambition piece of it to me is like the engine that drives all of it forward. So too often, as you mentioned, we are told we have to pick one, pick a lane. Either you climb in your career or you're present and prioritize your family or focus on the money later, it'll come. But that narrative is what keeps us small. So for me, I've always preached that your career, money, motherhood, and ambition must all coexist and you don't have to choose. you're building something on your own terms holistically.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, because I agree with you too. Like a lot of times I think it can be really easy to sort of focus on or to sort of have this idea that we have to focus on, one thing or another when really there are a lot of floating parts, there are a lot of floating pieces. And so yeah, I think that that's really helpful. So with that in mind, a lot of these moms who maybe feel like they have to do one lane or the other, but there are a lot of lanes to go down, and to your point, they all do coexist. And so as they're trying to, do all of these things, go down all these paths at the same time, there can be a lot of guilt, right? Because this idea that I have to pick one or the other. And the guilt is coming from a lot of different directions. So when we're talking about, career growth in particular, I'm curious, like, how do you work with people around that? Like, what are some of the maybe mindset shifts that maybe need to happen for these moms so that they can help manage that guilt? And how do you help them move past that?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, guilt is coming, I feel like a lot of times internally too, but a lot from our outside sources. And so usually I see people are, they think guilt comes from the belief that your ambition or your drive is taking away from your children or from your family. But in reality, your ambition adds to it. So your kids, what I always tell people, and this I feel like makes it really sink in for folks, is your kids are watching what you're modeling, right? So you're modeling what's possible, potentially modeling what's not possible. So that mindset shift that really needs to happen is ambition isn't selfish. It's truly a gift for yourself. And I always remind my clients, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And you are a better mother, partner, executive, etc., at all the titles and many hats that we wear when your cup is filled. So, again, it shows your children what leadership looks like and confidence and courage. And so I just help my clients reframe and say, okay, one, it's to create that awareness, right? Like, what does guilt look and feel like for me? Is it like my chest getting tight? Is it my throat, feeling dry? And then just take a pause, take a breath, and then, ask themselves, for example, what story am I showing my kids about what's possible, right? And then another big one that I like too is replacing balance. Because I don't love that word. I like to change it with, I don't believe in work-life balance. I think it's work-life integration.
Mhm.
But replacing that word balance with either integration or boundaries, right? So it's not about doing everything. It's about doing the things that truly matter to you. And again, everyone's um their drive, everyone's lane, if you will, is going to be different, right? Because what
Mhm.
drives me may not drive you and vice versa.
Well, and those things might change too, right? So
Exactly.
depending on where we are in our
Exactly.
lives and our careers, our
Exactly.
circumstances change, our priorities might change
Yes.
and what that looks like. So to your point, maybe not doing all the things, but doing the things that are most important at any particular
Right.
time and adjusting
Yeah,
as necessary. Yeah, and
absolutely.
in terms of like the guilt, I mean, I really like what you talked about in terms of its reframe because one of the things that I often talk to people about is this idea with guilt, the mindset piece, right? And that maybe we're either having a belief that we're doing something wrong or we're letting somebody down in some way. But really, mm, for starters, it's not selfish. We're not doing anything wrong. But also, to your point, taking it a step further, there can be a lot of benefits. It's not
Yeah,
just that we're not harming our kids or doing anything that's bad for them or anything like that. But this idea that they are learning through what they're observing, they're learning from, words people are talking to them about, it helps them develop skills. And so it can actually be like like a really positive thing for them, which it sounds like that's one of the things that you help people with a lot.
agreed. And the first step, even peeling before that, is clarity. Again,
Mhm.
what matters to me? I love you said it beautifully. What matters to me in this season, right?
Mhm.
And then once you understand what that, not what society's telling me, not what corporate's telling me, or what Instagram is telling me. What do I want deep down? And then that should be your driver.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, no, that makes sense. So you had mentioned, in your bio that you help moms build wealth. I'm going to come back to the money piece, right? So you help moms build wealth
Right.
and financial freedom. So what does that look like in more practical terms?
Yeah, I feel like for women, it's often, just salary negotiation, which I am a big proponent of. But it's not just about earning more, it's about managing and growing what you have. As we know, I feel like in the conversations that I've been in, women don't feel comfortable talking about money the way some of our counterparts do, even in our friend circles, even in our most trusted friend circles. So for my clients, wealth building means creating a money routine that feels almost as natural as like a workout, right? And I know workouts are kind of hit or miss nowadays. We're so busy, we're on caffeine, etc. But basically, what I'm trying to say with that is create a system that works for you. So practically, that'll look like knowing your numbers. I do an exercise that I absolutely love in the beginning of our coaching sessions where I sit with my client, we share screens, and we go through the last 3 months of the statements, right? So initially we'll say, okay, like what is your spending plan? What do you think you're spending on Chick-fil-A monthly during baseball season or gymnastics season, right? It's like, oh, I'm spending, you know, $60 a month. And then when you get that clarity and actually see line by line, like, wow, like it kind of lights something up for folks. And then I ask them, the way you're spending, is that currently aligned with your values or not? So again, knowing your numbers, just the simple things, automating savings. And it doesn't always have to be these big, large numbers, investing early. And then again, being very comfortable with talking about money without shame. So I always encourage my clients, just if you have so much resistance, one, let's figure out where that resistance is coming from, which is why I start at the foundation of really understanding your money story and your career story. But for this particular thing, your money story, because there may be some things in childhood that you're not connecting the dots to that may have you a little bit resistant to talking about money. And again, just knowing your numbers, knowing what's coming in, knowing what's going out. And I really encourage, I call them money circles. It could be two people, it could be four girlfriends, like just starting to talk about that amongst trusted peers makes all the
Mhm.
difference.
Now, I'm curious just because, like, yes, I think that it's super important that moms are not feeling like they're doing anything wrong, right? And that they're certainly not alone in the struggles that or challenges that they are having. So, just out of curiosity, when you first start working with people, do you find that most moms do know all their numbers, or is that something that is a shift that they then have to work towards making?
Absolutely, is a shift that they have to work toward. Um, they would it breaks my heart a little bit to say this, but, I will say at least 50% of them are like, I don't even know, my partner handles the money." And I'm like, like, I get it, and that's a blessing, but
Mhm.
I still want you to know the numbers as well. Like, let's make this more of a partnership for all the reasons that I could go into. Women live longer, healthcare costs are higher, all the fun data, statistics behind that. But it does take time. It really does take time. And again, I like to start at that foundation. What is that root? What is that resistance? Or what is making you so hesitant to want to look at your numbers? And then let's add in these little micro habits that will ultimately lead to wherever your personal goals are.
Yeah, and I just wanted to sort of ask that question and point that out and have you point that out because I had a feeling that that's what you were gonna say, and I don't want any moms as they're listening to be thinking like, "Oh gosh, well, I don't know my numbers, like I must be doing something wrong," right? I
Right.
think that, like with anything, we're all learning, it's a work in progress, to your point, this is
Constantly.
not something that a lot of moms are necessarily thinking about, but making those shifts, it sounds like could really be
And it
beneficial for them.
and I wanna emphasize, like, it truly can be small. It could be automating $25 a week or whatever your financial situation allows, just making it easier for you. But yes, the hardest part, I believe, is just starting. That's it.
Mhm. Okay. Well, and with that point, do you have any tips on how to help them get started? Like one thing that they could do to move past that?
Yeah, I'll go back to my favorite exercise. You don't have to do 3 months, but take some time and go look at your bank statements for the last month. And again, just see if how you're spending, where you're spending, if that's aligned with your goals and your overall, personal values, personal and family values.
Okay. Okay, great. So, what would you say are some of the most common money blocks or myths that keep these ambitious women underpaid or financially stressed?
Yes, the one I hear most frequently is I should just be grateful. I should just be grateful to have. this job. I should just be grateful and I'm just going to stay kind of in where I'm currently at. What I always remind my clients is, gratitude is great. And I am a big proponent of gratitude journals, and reminding yourself how far you come. But gratitude also doesn't always pay the bills. Strategy does. Another one is talking about money is, either rude or selfish, or I just shouldn't talk about it. When in reality, that silence is what cost women's hundreds of thousands of dollars over a lifetime when you're thinking about and talking about compounding effects. So I would say those are the two that I hear, or some version of those, the most. Um, and again, I just encourage people, start practicing those money conversations in safe places. And then two, what I also like to tell women is, if you can, tie every career move to a financial strategy, right? So
Mhm.
showing up with the evidence and the data to put in front of your employer. And that should help the conversation, go a lot further and make it you feel more comfortable versus just saying, hey, I want to raise. Okay, you want to raise. But this is why I've done this. I've saved the company X amount of dollars. Just so for some examples.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, and as you talk about career paths, because that was something that I was wondering about too, and you were talking about strategies in terms of like the money piece, but I'm curious, like, what about strategies that maybe you would teach to help moms design a career path that is going to work with their roles as mothers?
Absolutely. So I teach women to define and articulate what are their non-negotiables and then build careers around them. So what does that mean? Getting clear on what hours you're willing to work. Are you able to travel? Okay, maybe I can travel 20%, but I can't take a role that requires travel 80%, right? Will you commit or will you not commit to that? What flexibility do you need? Again, that can look like in the benefits or hours or work from home or working in an office or 2 days a week, whatever that looks like. And then, most importantly, because I do work with women who are generally stuck in that middle management and desire to get to the executive level, what executive level path aligns with your family values? Again, we know when you become executive at certain companies, again, you need to understand what is that company's values? Is it in alignment with yours? But once you get crystal clear on what your non-negotiables are, then you're able to weed out everything that doesn't, fall into alignment with those.
Okay, so when you're talking about, people who maybe are feeling stuck in the middle of like where they are and where they want to be, it's really about, clarifying. You talked about clarification earlier too, but just really
Yes.
clarifying those values,
Very.
non-negotiables, things like that, and then going from there.
Yes. Yeah. So begin auditing your current, situation. Do I love the company culture? I just don't love the role I'm in. Do I like this kind of role? Do I want to progress into, there's a lot of, I probably sound like a broken record, but it truly is that clarity. Ask yourself questions. Am I influencing decisions, or am I just executing on them? And then once you get that clarity, then you'll really know where to focus and where to put your energy for the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So one of the things that, I talk to people a lot about, it sounds like you do too, is just this idea about our belief systems, and how that influences, the decisions that we make and all of that. And so with this, with our conversation in particular, I'm curious, like, what do you feel is maybe one belief about motherhood, money, ambition, all the things that we're talking about today that you would like to see women unlearn? Because one of the other things that I tell people is that our thoughts are learned, right? And
Yes.
anything that can be learned can be
Can be
unlearned.
unlearned.
So,
Yes.
what would your thoughts be about that?
Yeah, I think it would go back to that ambition makes you a bad mother. That is a lie that women have carried for far too long. Ambition doesn't make you any less of a mother. Again, like I said earlier, it makes you a model. What are you modeling for your family, your children? Um, and it creates that financial stability for your family. Again, it's not selfish, it's leadership, right? It's all about how you're framing it in your own mind, which is why I'm a big fan of writing and journaling things out that you're feeling. And then you'll start to see things, right? And then you can address them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, oh my gosh, I feel like you are just a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information. And, I was so excited to have you today because of this particular topic. Because again, money, I feel like is a topic that a lot of women don't feel comfortable talking about, and I think that it's important to be starting those conversations. And obviously I'm sure there's a lot more to hear about and learn. So the people who are listening today, if they want to, learn more about you and your work, like where could they go to do that?
Yes, you can find me at my website. It's www.anchor, and that's spelled ANCHER, co.com. And my Instagram handle is at the Anchor Co. So ANCHER Co. So those are two resources that you can reach out to me. And I love having conversations. Please reach out. There's no dumb questions. I love just having these conversations with women, even around the money piece of it. Please, please, please reach out, and I'm happy to be a resource.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. And as always, for people listening, I will make sure that all of that is included in the show notes. So if you're driving right now, don't feel like you have to, pull over to write it down. I'll make sure that all of that is available for you. So before we kind of wrap up today, if you could leave the listeners with one final message, one final piece of advice, just one final thing that you would want them to know and hear, what would that be?
I would leave you with, again, ambition isn't selfish. And when mothers own it fully in your career, your money, and motherhood, everyone benefits.
Okay. Okay. Great. Well, thank you again so much for being here. I
Thank you
feel
so
like
much for listening
this
to me.
has been wonderful. And as always, for the moms who are listening, if any of this resonates, or if you found any of the things that we talked about today to be helpful or valuable. So for starters, you can reach out to Kiara. We are going to have that information available for you for how you could do that. But also, please just share this podcast with any other moms that could maybe use some additional support. There are a lot of us out there, and we are all in this together. So thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great.